out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Timbuktu.
Yeah, buddy.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, we did it.
Happy Friday.
Is it Friday? Oh yeah, it's
we
Friday.
We
Cool.
don't usually record on a Friday, but here we are. Thanks for being flexible. And hello everyone. Welcome to Dismembering Horror. If you're listening to this when it comes out, happy Thursday. If not, happy whatever day it is. But yes, this is Dismembering Horror, specifically episode 78 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
myself, Tim Aslin,
we dismember a horror film every week, in fact. And what does it mean to dismember a horror film, Tim?
It means we watch a horror film and then we tear it apart.
Mm-hmm. Dismember it.
Yeah. That's it.
But Tim, how we tear it apart, how we dismember it is
Does
we
it
talk
matter?
about
Limb by limb.
Yes. The first limb is what worked for us.
That's right.
Then what didn't work for us. And then anything we found interesting or noteworthy.
It's sort of like the arms are the what worked for us, and the legs are what didn't work for us, and the head is the last bit you got to take off, and it's the things of note.
In order of how to disable someone, sure. I'm not gonna try to dwell on that analogy too much.
Well, kind of like in this movie that we watched.
Yeah, some good.
You got to go for the head.
Yeah, exactly. The movie we watched is Bedevilled,
also known as The Whole Story of Kim Bok-nam Murder Case.
Oh, is that
That's the actual Korean translation of the Korean title of this movie.
I wonder where they got Bedevilled.
Yeah, I actually tried to find that and couldn't find anything that said where or why.
Anyway, I'm sure this is one that popped up on wherever we get anything, wherever we get any of our horror movies on a list.
Some list.
An internet thread of recommendations.
Yeah. Do you remember if you found this one? I don't remember.
A lot of the times I just assume the foreign ones I always try to seek out.
I kind of assume that too.
But I don't know, probably. I get excited about it. But it was kind of funny, Tim, right? Getting this right after Martyrs to have two intense revenge movies in a row.
Dude, yeah. Oh my God.
Kind of, yeah. If you're listening to these back-to-back live, here you go. A lot of women revenge tales.
I'm into it.
Me too. Oh, by the way, have you seen I Saw the Devil yet?
Oh my God, no.
Okay. Did you end up seeing...
How many episodes? I've seen nothing lately.
You almost went and saw...
I know, I
Color Out of Space.
I couldn't. I didn't have time.
Go see it.
I know. There's like 8 movies right now that I need to see.
But you got me... You said
Parasite, I still need to see.
But when you said I might go see Color Out of Space tonight...
I thought I could that night, and then I couldn't. I forget why. I think I had a rehearsal.
I'm saying just keep that to the top of the list.
Okay.
Because it may not be out as long as the others.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, where were we? Okay. Yes.
Know.
Now
where are we?
We said we're watching Bedevilled, or we did watch it. That's what we're talking about. So then we watched the trailer. We played the trailer for you and us. So let's just do that. How about that?
Yeah.
All right. Here it is. Bedevilled.
퍼질러 있지 말고 국시라도 말어야 여잔 남자 젖을 물고 살아야 편한겨.
나하고 연희 서울에 데려가면 안 되겠냐?
왜 그래?
이혼은 묻지 말고.
Well, that was a whole lot of just booms.
Yep.
For you, the audience. It was. We will say that the trailer has some titling come up, and it says Bok-nam is not. What was the first one? Stupid, and then not angry, and then not crazy, and then
a lot of the booms were specifically bedeviled coming up.
Yeah,
Bedeviled.
And like her looking threatening.
Yeah.
So there you go, because you didn't get much else from that.
And painted very much as a, well, I mean, it is like a thriller or horror, but
Yeah.
it takes it milks it. It leads up to it.
Dude. I mean, the whole movie is just like
Tension.
just
Yeah.
making us fucking hate everybody
Yeah.
for like an hour and 40 minutes.
That's kind of your favorite though, right?
I
The once the catharsis
yeah,
happens.
Yes, very much so. Because as you well remember, about maybe halfway through, I was just like, cut that motherfucker's head off, please.
Stab him! Stab him!
And then it eventually happens. But like when I said that, we still had another 20 minutes at least of just tension.
And I think the film was a
And
better
just-
film for it.
Probably. Yeah, probably. But man, there is a limit, I think, where it's like, we better get what we're now wanting, or else like I'm going to be super upset.
Well, can you
know what I mean?
Can you translate that into how
Yeah.
you rate this per our rating system? If you tell yourself to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy it.
Okay, yeah. So I would have I would have been really pissed off if the catharsis didn't like really land, and it would have made it. It would have made it a stream, I think, for me. I think even if the catharsis hadn't worked, there's still a lot of good. So it'd still be watchable and streamable, but it would just be a drama, actually, is what it would have been. And a really upsetting one.
I don't know.
But
yeah, it's
so I would say I'm a rent, but like a hardcore rent.
yeah, ditto. But I guess I did. It's hard for me to, even though like, okay, Ryan, it's like the subject matter that's going on though is horror-ible.
No, I agree.
It's
Maybe
beyond just kind of, I don't know, some feels like Daniel Day-Lewis would be in it kind of thing. Like it's.
But would you call There Will Be Blood not like anything other than a drama?
It's a P.T. Anderson movie.
I know that's true. Because I think you could borderline make the argument that movie is close to a horror film.
Yeah, like Foxcatcher is one of my favorite films of recent times.
That's a good movie.
And, you say, oh, it's a drama, but I heard someone describe it as a horror film in slow motion.
The director did, I think.
No, it was someone else reviewing it. Yeah, but someone who was like a comedian, I want to say, or a named person. Anyways.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I've heard that. Yeah,
not for labels, man.
No, I agree. That's fine. I kept thinking there for a while. I was thinking, oh shit, are we watching the wrong Bedevilled?
Here's the
because there is another Bedevilled that came up when I was
Yeah.
searching for this. That I guess is just a US
Here's the
thing.
thing, though, because like all that tension or not overt killing that that the bulk of the film is.
You mean like just awful abuse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was necessary to then make the stuff at the end, the
No
more
question.
typically like called horror stuff at the end. It made that work. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't so much look at it as like running time is the defining factor, like content of running time, but more so just if the content's there at all, like if it goes to that place, then that's where it is for me as a whole. And now here is just more, a matter of, well, what is, or any film, what does it take to get there? And this just happened to be one where the tension was really prolonged. I think, but because of the level of realism, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that depending on the filmmaker, really, I think a lot of people would not have prolonged the sort of, the lead up as long as this movie did. And I think a lot of people could or did or will or whatever argue that it was too long of a lead up. I mean, we'll discuss it. I'm not sure I'm one of those people. There was a moment in there where I started to go, okay, what the fuck? Like, what, is something going to happen? And then the movie did its thing, and I stopped having that thought. So whatever.
Okay, I had a thought on that. I'll save it for our official worked
Great.
section.
Cool.
Okay, you want? Oh, yeah. As I try to get that down, how about our summary?
All right, let me summarize.
How about we start with this, Tim? The very short summary from Letterboxd.
Okay.
A woman subject to mental, physical, and sexual abuse on a remote island seeks a way out.
There you go.
Anything you'd like to add?
The whole story of Kim Bok-nam murder case.
Yeah.
Of the Kim Bok-nam murder case. That's the story. Yeah, I mean, that is what it's about. But to summarize a little bit more fully,
please, with names.
You've got great. You've got essentially 3 main characters, and then a handful of sub characters. But Haewon, is that right? Does that seem right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Haewon is a woman who lives in Seoul, in the city. And she's a bank teller. And she is an asshole. But so is kind of a lot of people around her, except for like one coworker and whatever. But she's an asshole. And I don't know why. She just doesn't like her life or something. But she assholes a little too hard and gets put on leave.
We come to know why, what her issues are.
Do we? We do? Wait.
Her deeply buried resentment to herself for betraying a childhood friend or family member.
Okay, I can get behind that. I didn't really connect the overall impact, like in her adult life, of that early moment.
The flashbacks tied it all for me.
Yeah, well, it made it make sense to me, but that's an interesting point of like, is that sort of the undercurrent? That moment is the undercurrent of her whole shittiness in life.
People's psychological traps don't change like that. Right.
Okay, so she's an asshole. She sees dudes beating up a fucking woman in the street, and she's like the only witness to ID these assholes. These other assholes. And like in the police station, she's like, yeah, I don't know.
And we're like,
that guy doesn't, he's not wearing the ring that the one guy was wearing. So maybe it's not him. It's like, dude, you suck.
She slapped someone at the bank or lending firm or whatever it is.
She slapped her coworker. And then she slapped her coworker for being nice.
Yeah. Right.
That's like, what the fuck? Haewon sucks. She's such a jerk.
So
she gets put on administrative leave kind of or whatever for a week. Take a vacation. So she takes a vacation to her childhood home, which is an island that's inhabited by like, I don't know, 15 women and 2 dudes.
And 2 dudes and an invalid man.
Oh, right. Yeah, the third dude.
He just sits there eating greens.
Apparently he has Alzheimer's.
Okay.
I didn't put that together, but it's in the Wikipedia. So there you go. Right. And so they, they're sort of a, what would you call that? Kind of like almost commune-ish. Women do basically all the work. Like they're tilling the fields and fishing and doing all sorts of shit. And the 2 dudes who are brothers, they're kind of just like the handymen who like help out here and there. But the women there are completely sort of like in this weird mentality of like subservience to these 2 men, really to the one main guy whose name is...
Well, it's subservient, not so much specifically to them, but I mean, they are, but subservient to the very idea of just these old-fashioned, like,
yes,
a woman's purpose is to serve the man, that should be all that she needs to make her happy and find fulfillment.
Yeah, and if you don't buy into that, you're a total pariah. You're
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So Menjong is the main dude, and he's got a brother. I think is Cheol-soo.
Yeah, Cheol-soo.
Okay, so when we get, I know, right? Jesus, I'm going to tell the whole fucking movie. So Haewon gets to the island. Her childhood friend greets her there and is super excited to see her. And then we find out that woman, Boknan, is getting the shit beat out of her by her asshole husband, Menjong. And she has a daughter, not by him, but they're together. And he's the worst, and his brother is also the worst, who is also like systematically raping her. And Haewon just kind of hangs out and largely observes this abuse.
We learn that they have backstory together when they were growing up as two girls on the island together.
Mm-hmm. And that there's a bunch of other young boys on the island, including the guy who's now her husband and his brother.
Right. Finally, Kim Boknam reaches a breaking point, kills everyone with a sickle, and then escapes.
Well, before that, the real turning point is that she tries to get the fuck off the island
with her daughter,
and it fails. And her daughter, in the ensuing fracas that her husband causes over this, he ends up killing her daughter.
Yep.
He pushes her off of him, and she dies.
Head on the rock.
Yeah. And then they gaslight the fuck out of Boknam. The entire village basically says, oh, no, she's crazy, and everything she's saying is bullshit, and the guy is totally exonerated. And the pivotal moment is that Boknam looks to Haewon and says, can you just attest for the fact that he fucking killed my daughter? And Haewon again says, no, what they're saying is true. She's wrong. So she has
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. She has an opportunity to insert herself into this other crime, and she again chooses to not be involved, which is later comes back around because we see a flashback of when Boknam was raped by all these kids on the island, presumably the time that she got pregnant with this daughter. And Haewon fucking watched that happen and did nothing then either. So she sucks. And then Boknam goes fucking just destructo on all of them.
And then she follows Haewon off the island, and they have a final fight.
Yep.
Great. And then Haewon though is I don't want to say the victor, but she survives.
The survivor, yeah.
And Boknam,
believe it or not,
dies. Okay, great. Let's do it. Next section. Thanks for bearing with us.
How long was that?
What worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm. Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
Well, so we already said, I mean, this drawn out tension and just sort of, it's slow motion dominoes is what it felt like to me, where it's just like, oh, fuck. And there's so many of them. It's never ending. It's so fucking good.
Well, it goes, okay. Yeah, I guess there's a horror in there that's not necessarily obvious when it leads to that final, what it's all building to, why that was so effective for me in another sense as making it a horror film was it to tease me along, to make me hate these people that much without any catharsis. Tim, it takes a lot for me nowadays to sort of feel like I can get behind wanting to see or just emotionally, beyond my intellectual beliefs of just kind of being nonviolence person. It takes a lot for me to build up to being able to want to, see it in a kind of real world setting like this. Right. So then by teasing it so long, I'm feeling it too. And I'm cheering for this horrible stuff to happen. And that terrifies me on another level still, that we're still, that we're all human in that way too. But I commend and enjoy film, and it's working for me when it can just bring that out in me again.
I think that the real success of how this film is constructed is that in just under 2 hours, it gets us really to viscerally feel what a lifetime of abuse could be like, and how it can drive you to a state of fucking complete, just not insanity, but just like you cannot fucking live in that world anymore. And you go, yeah, no shit. Of course, this is, yeah, I would fucking want to kill all these people. They're the worst people, and enough is enough. Like, enough fucking abuse. And
it worked so well, just not only in that empathizing way with her, as exactly as you said, but also in not objectively, but like outwardly, just kind of wanting the best for her and seeing her suffer too. Like, it really got to me and really worked for me by the end when Haewon is opening Baknam's letters that she never opened. And there's just, it's so heartbreaking. There's so much like humanity and just kind of the sweetness of what she's saying, and to see her a handwritten letter, and like hearing the tone in the voice of, oh, I hope you're well. And then combine that with how excited she was when she arrived at the island. And you're just like,
because she's thought this whole time that that's why she's there, that she's been opening the letters, and that she's been there. She's coming to fucking save her.
It just, we see like,
she's not,
but she's just like, we see she's just one of those like really sweet, good people
in the face of the worst shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's still able to have that.
Like, who she is at her core.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing.
So that's just, that really got to me and was affecting too. Like, from that, not just the empathy of feeling like we're in the situation with her, but just like, oh man.
Well, and I think that's a testament to, I mean, obviously the writing, but like that, her characterization, like the actress, whoo,
yeah,
she's fucking amazing.
Right.
Like, it's really hard not to like her immediately.
Seo Young-hee.
Yeah, like, she's fucking really good. I don't think I've seen anything else with her, but whatever. She is amazing.
Yeah.
The plight, I guess, sort of her plight is very clear, and her characterization makes us really get on board with, wanting her to succeed, like her to like have a fucking better life.
And it's just so tragic, and there is an escalation too, because it's like, okay, first the husband is the abuser, then it's the husband's brother-in-law.
First the brother, I think.
Anyway,
right?
It's
so it's a little separated,
like, and then we get they're abusing the daughter too, and then we get that the whole island is complacent with it.
Yeah, the main old woman is so fucking hateful.
Call her the matriarch.
Dude.
Mademoiselle.
Yeah, Mademoiselle. She's so hateful. It is one of those things that just makes you want to fucking scream.
And honestly, that's what gets to me as the scary, like, as horrible as everything that we just said is. I think we've talked about this before, but you can intellectualize that though. It's like, okay, I can see how this is all plugged into a cycle of abuse and neglect and blah, blah, blah. But then there's something about when you have these sort of older figures who you want to be able to look at as a source for some kind of knowledge, what they learned, whatever. I get the term the matriarchs, but we see that they're all the very source of all this, this distress and horribleness and this cycle. And that is just so... that kind of terror, like, and it's their certainty, how unshakable they are. That's so terrifying.
Well, and yeah, even when we get to the point where the matriarch knows that Baknam has gone off the rails and is killing people, she still is like sort of justifying the behavior. She still cannot see why Baknam would get to that point.
It's because it's not her reality.
Right.
She
lives
lives
that's horror.
Right.
Like that fucking thing. Even even in the face of like, holy shit, we pushed her too far.
Right.
She still can't see it.
And I thought what this film did was sort of use that kind of story and show it well in a lot of just metaphor and not too over the head metaphors or symbology or whatever you want to call it. Like as far as that one shot when it shows Bok-nam's body and she fades into the island, then all of a sudden all these thoughts we've been having about how like these matriarchal figures, like you just said, the old woman, her unchanging ways that are so terrifying, how kind of the idea of being isolated on an island is just kind of this melting churning pot of horror, when you have no outside influence and it's only bad stuff going on unless someone tries to, you know, break through and bring some good into it, it's just going to get worse. So that shot of the island being like her, and that they're one of this
kind of undulating like on the water.
Yeah, just that idea of a person as an island of you know, their own unchanging ways and how they have to get off their own island. Oh, whatever. Again, it's like,
you know, what it makes me think of is. We've kind of talked about certitude and like being like, yeah, I know a thing and it's just this because I know it. People are fucking crazy. Like they make stuff up and decide that it's the truth all the time. And I think that's actually, it's kind of a thing, like the island is kind of a good metaphor for that, because like the matriarch is saying like constantly throughout this movie, she's like, oh, people in Seoul are like, Seoul is dirty and like why would you ever want to go there? We have everything we need here. Like there's this sort of like that place is bullshit and we're right. That is constantly kind of reinforced. I remember when I decided to move to LA from New York City and I started telling like my friends, all of them were like, ugh, why would you go to LA? LA's the worst. You're going to fucking hate it. And I'd be like, oh, shit, really? Like, should I not go? Like, why? Like, when were you there?
And
like,
they don't go, see, look at here in the encyclopedia. It says LA's horrible.
Right. So I would ask them, I'd be like, well, what's bad about, like, what, have you been there? You know, like, why shouldn't I go? And they're like, oh, I've never been there. I would never go there. Fuck LA. And it's like, what are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? You're just making a thing up because you saw an episode of fucking The OC or something. Like, what the fuck?
And then there's just something...
But the certitude of it, I hate that shit.
Satisfyingly horrible and kind of unnervingly realistic when it is these old Korean women just saying they're kind of, nope, this is how the world is.
Yeah.
Nope, the wife has to serve the husband.
Well, and the irony of like, you want to fucking believe them because of this construct of like respecting the elders and that they've lived a life that is worth, you know, the knowledge that they've accrued over time. So like we want to fucking buy in, but that's horrible. It's
right.
Horrifying that they're what we're wanting to buy into. They're just fucking deluded themselves.
To pick up on the thread again, I was getting at with the symbolism, like being there, but never too forced or trite. The two examples I loved of that was the knife, like the phallus, like she's licking it, and like, you know, really, and actually getting him going off of it by licking. Like, it's how she and it's just fascinating how she disarms him from killing her is to like use that power over him.
The only thing that she's been, you know, that she like the only tool in her sort of belt that she still has, because he's such a caveman.
And then as far as that symbology, when she reverses the knife in her mouth because her hands are tied behind her back, so she's holding it in her mouth with the handle, and then runs at him and stabs him, and then it looks like she's getting him off, right? But that symbology of being like this reverse pleasure to killing, it's kind of like the biting the dick off in a way, but with a knife as the dick itself. It was just great. Yeah.
There's another one that that's very subtle, and I guess if you know more about Korean culture, this wouldn't be not obvious, but it wasn't obvious to us. There's the scene when Bok-nam is chasing I think the older lady, the matriarch, I think that's right. She's chasing her through kind of the landscape, and there are these mounds. So they're burial mounds, and she's like, she's going on her killing rampage, and she's chasing her through basically a fucking graveyard. But it's very subtle because it's not, well, it's subtle to me. It's like if they had literally been in a graveyard, it might have been a little like, with tombstones and stuff like that, like a Western graveyard. It might have felt a little on the nose. But this was just sort of the landscape, right? And that's, because of how the mounds have grass has grown over them and whatever. It's just kind of nice looking. But it's doing a couple things of like, they're having to kind of weave between them. So it's like, it's a little bit like, feels like a maze kind of. There's a lot to that maybe kind of stuff.
To try to get at the symbolism more, because it's fun and that's what we're doing here. I guess those people... The dead people who are buried there almost represent the generation or the people that came before her. How she
right.
is the victim in her own way.
Definitely. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's a lot of very subtle stuff like that.
Yeah. I think my last favorite one where it's like there's symbolism there, but it's so just kind of out there and great and atypical that it's just great, was... We have set up this flute from their childhood.
It's a recorder, okay?
A recorder.
Let's be it's an ivory recorder.
I appreciate it. It's like the recorder you learn in 4th grade.
That's right, yeah.
But we have, as kids, Bok-nam always loved, she couldn't play it and would hand it over to Haewon and say, play it for me, play this tune. It was just kind of their thing together. So then in the end, in their final fracas as adults, it comes back as a weapon. Oh, first of all, the symbolism, the meaning is there. It's worth mentioning it in that first time when they were kids and they got attacked by the boys, they broke it.
Yeah.
And it was used as, I don't know if it was used as, anyway, that sort of, the recorder breaking almost represents their whatever relationship breaking. And then so to that be used, the broken recorder as the final weapon that then gets stabbed into her throat and blood is coming out of it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yep. What do you think's going on in there though?
In the recorder?
If you had to pick apart what that symbolism can mean for you or that represents for you.
Well, yeah. I think that the biggest thing is, and maybe not the recorder itself being, actually, I mean, using a recorder as the instrument, a recorder is really rudimentary, right? Like, it's not as complex as a flute, but it's a kind of hard instrument to be great at, right? And so it's kind of one of these things that's like, you give it to kids because you can do the basics on it, but then nobody really grows up to become a amazing recorder artist, right? They move on to another instrument, a more advanced instrument. And so there's something childlike about the recorder, but it's kind of a hard thing to play. And so there's something interesting to me just musically about using that as the fucking instrument. It's a child's instrument, but it's a complex instrument as well.
Totally, yeah.
And so it makes sense that's the thing that she can't do well, Bok-nam can't do well, and Haewon can, because she sort of represents the ideology or the what is that? What is the word? She's idolized by Bok-nam. Haewon is on all sort of fronts.
Oh, she lives in Seoul.
Exactly. There's all of that. She's the one who got off the island. She's the one who has this great life, all this shit that's not true. It's all imagined, right? But she's also the one who can play the recorder well, right? As a child. And so the envy of that, I think, exists. And to have that thing broken, the thing that connects her to envying Haewon is literally broken, is sort of representative of the trust, of she should have fucking said something when the boys are raping her the first time, and sort of sets all of that up. It makes it all tie together to me.
I was going to, say something, arrive at the exact same place, but get there a little differently was, the recorder represents that fracturing of the relationship, and it is Haewon's doing by not helping Bok-nam, then it's kind of this tragic, rather than Bok Nam using it to kill Hae-won as this like, finally now like our broken friendship, I'm getting back at you. It's almost like Hae-won's doing the betrayal that she's been doing all along, except it's just the ultimate killing her, you know, like
it's the worst. It's the worst object that she could use to be killed by. That Bok Nam could be killed by.
Right.
And you know, when there's sort of a cool moment there when she, you know, stabs Bok Nam in the throat with it, or the neck, they cut to a single shot of Hae-won, and she's sort of just like shocked and still, and then starts screaming. And it sort of feels like this thing of like her finally getting it. You know, like all of this shit, she finally has to scream the horror of it all. Because it's a weird scream, and I think it's purposefully weird. It's got a lot in it.
Yeah. To I guess work off again some more specific moments, horror things. I loved it. The ending that we just talked about, their final fracas, how Bok Nam, she like gets in that mode of almost like Terminator style, where she seems to take on this sort of unshakable superpowers, where she gets,
oh my God,
where she gets hit and shot at, and she just like, you know, ain't no thing, just keeps coming at him.
When she gets hit, Hae-won picks up a billy club in the police station and hits her across the head with it, and it does nothing.
And the movie's so...
That is amazing.
And it works, like the movie's so realistic and, you know, done in that style that we buy it as just like, oh my God, she's just... like her power of crazy and determination is just superseding physical pain.
She's carrying a fucking sledgehammer around and winging that thing
after getting shot.
Yes, it's awesome. No, I really think that it needed that. It needed that sort of over the top. I don't know if it's over the top, but just intense.
Well, to show that she's a sleeping dragon just in her power this whole time.
Yeah, and yeah. They unlocked it.
They straw broke the camel's back.
It's fucking it's that the whole end sequence is fucking awesome.
And I mean, even, or I guess what else, just other like maybe horror trope things. You're right, it just does feel enough just drama tragedy, almost feels weird putting it in terms of like the slasher weapon, but hey, the sickle,
awesome
as a murder weapon.
Fuck yeah.
Right.
I like when she throws well, we don't see it, but she throws the brother's head into the fucking branches above the well, so they eventually see it.
Take that.
Yeah, get ready.
Also, the main matriarch woman getting her comeuppance, where it's like, if we couldn't hate her enough, she throws the daughter's book off the cliff.
Yeah, don't learn stuff.
Yeah, and then her comeuppance, of course, is she just, I want to say falls, but she actually thinks she can make it into the water when she's getting pushed up against the cliff, and then kind of does a half-hearted jump and then just lands in the rocks below.
It's the arrogance of it that is so good, because she stands on the edge of the cliff and she's like, I'm not going to fucking let you kill me. The men are coming. I can swim out to them because I'm fucking strong and I can still swim, and I'll swim to that fucking boat right now. Bye. Yeah. Pew! And then she, no, just kidding.
Could have been maybe a step too far, but it's fun to imagine what if it had showed like her next to the book when she landed.
That would be funny. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I love the descent into, I guess the breaking point of Bok Nam is so good. Like from the point of the daughter's death. And the performance of her flip, like once she flips out and like the motherfucker who's like put some bean paste on everything.
Oh, we gotta talk about the bean paste,
dude. That whole like keeping that going throughout is fucking one of the best things ever.
That was one of the best things ever, and how it finally paid off.
Yeah.
Can you just tell?
Yeah. So initially, he's a real dickhead, and he, Bok Nam is tending to the bees and the honey, and he's just sitting there like a piece of shit, yelling at her, saying she's lazy or whatever, and then he throws a rock and hits the fucking bee
Basically,
box,
it's like, yeah,
and she gets stung a bunch.
She keeps, no matter what her injury is that happens throughout it,
Yeah.
he just keeps telling her, put the bean paste on it, put the bean paste on it.
Yeah, so he tells her to do it with that. He tells her with like 2 other things.
But he uses it as this whole cover for his abuse, as if just put the bean paste on it.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
So finally,
yeah,
when she tears him up with the knife and the sledgehammer, she covers him in bean paste.
Dude. Well, and she says he like before he dies, like before he's dead and he's like kind of gargling and she's just slashed the shit out of him. He's like looking at her like, ugh, and she's like, just put some bean paste on it.
Yeah.
And then she drags his body over to the bean paste and dumps a fuckload of it on him.
I agree. The last scene was good, but I think that whole sequence of her getting that, enacting the revenge or whatever on the main tormentor was like one of the sort of promise of premise, can only do it in this film, highlight sequences.
I totally agree. I actually thought...
the mouth knife stab into the bean paste, check.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So good. Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a second ending with the Haewon stuff.
Which
great. I really thought when Haewon escapes and we kind of don't, like, she gets the boat and she kind of just goes away. We don't really see her go away. We just know that she has gotten control of the boat and has left the island. And then we see Bok-nam and the cool shot of her laying down in the island and all that. The next thing we see is her getting picked up, and she's kind of dressed herself up and put makeup on and whatever. And I was like, this is really wonky, this fucking ending. Like, Haewon has just disappeared.
That's when I was thinking, I'm into it because I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that sort of, I was like, this feels very strange.
I thought it was gonna like just kind of wrap it up tight, which would have felt too tight somehow at that point.
Right.
But to give it this full ending, I felt it deserved and led up to was great. And you just to mention that little moment where she dresses herself all up because she's going off the island for the first time, and someone on the boat says to her like questions her if she's crazy or something, and she says, "Oh, do I look crazy to you?" We know she just murdered a bunch of people, but that's
she's actually asking,
right? That's just such a good touch of someone just being able to be like, oh, well, because I am wearing normal clothes and know how to put on makeup, I must not be crazy.
Right.
And he just kind of gives a little pause. But that's just, I think, a really fun idea.
So I think
all crazy.
I was very pleasantly surprised to see that we weren't done.
Yeah, exactly.
Very.
Well, it starts off with a character who doesn't end up being the main character. That was tricky to make work, but I will say it did work for me. After the flashbacks, after that ending, it all tied it together, lickety split.
Yeah, that became an early question of like, wait a minute, what the who are we paying attention to? And it became very clear very fast that Haewon was not the sort of main character. But there was a transition of like, wait, are we going to get back to her somehow? Is this going to come? Because remember when I was thinking to myself, or I said this out loud, I was like, man, Haewon sucks and she's going to get it. She's going to really get it. I thought the movie was going to be about her getting it. And it's not. Well, but she does get it.
It kind of works to subvert our rape revenge expectation.
Yeah. And that's good. Like that really, really worked. I think it would have been a lesser movie if it was somehow more about this shitty character, Haewon. She's such a foil in like the best way because she's representative of the shittiness of everybody. I mean, one of the best things of the whole movie is when fucking Bok-nam gets off the boat finally on the mainland for the first time. She's very unsteady. She like needs to be helped off the boat. And, it's like, holy shit, a new world, right? And she pays the boat driver and he gives her back like half the money. And he's like, listen, you kind of need this more than I do kind of thing.
Well, she doesn't even know how much she's supposed to give. It's like a kid just being like, here is money.
Yeah. And he gives her some advice. He's like, there's a boss, you can do this. And the next thing she says, she's like, oh, there are kind people in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the first time ever
anyone's been nice.
Anybody has been kind.
Yeah.
And so having Haewon be such an unkind person in the opening, and then everybody on the island be so fucking unkind. Like, that was a really, like, it was emotional for her, like, watching a character be like, oh, that's a thing that exists?
Yeah.
That's fucking heartbreaking.
That was a good moment.
So, yeah, this is a good movie.
The last two things, just scenes that really worked for me, was that the boat guy who's like so obviously betraying her when so the moment where they're trying to escape, where she's trying to escape with the daughter, and you're just like, just leave, he's coming. And the boat captain is like, oh wait, now let me count the money again. I was
Lights
just
a cigarette,
so mad.
can't find his lighter. He's just being deliberately fucking horrible.
I just felt it in my chest, Tim.
I know. I just want to fucking strangle him.
Just get out of there. Just go.
Steal it. You even, you're like, just steal the boat.
Yeah. So mad. So that was, I mean, hey, effectively getting caught up worked for me. But then in a more kind of, I don't know, just being a good film, doing interesting, cool stuff way, my other favorite, I think, scene next to the bean paste stuff that it led up to was her looking at the sun as like a source of higher power.
Yeah.
Just somehow snapping her into, hey, this is your purpose right now.
And those shots are great.
And there was just something cool about, her looking into it, and then kind of the older people around her, the older women, just kind of the way they're observing her, and I don't know, it was all cut together really cool.
They're like singing and they're being kind of childish.
Yeah, they were singing their song. That was it.
Yeah, that whole thing of just like, they're fucking living in just fucking La La Land, right?
Yep.
They're just like, la fucking la, none of this matters, whatever. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter that
That's
this
what
woman...
their lyrics are singing. It's like,
Right.
I may be pretty and you may be young and da 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 da. It's all this weird...
All doesn't matter because whatever, we're still here. It's so fucking annoying. Like, it's so quintessential frustration to me of this. It's this ostrich syndrome type shit of like, la la la, I'm just not going to look over there and see the horrible shit that's being done to a fellow human being. Like, fuck. Yeah. Come on, guys. But like the depiction of that in this way lands so fucking well. Because we're like, yeah, every fucking day we walk down the street and there's like a fucking dude laying in the middle of the street in LA and people just drive by. It's like, what the fuck, guys? Like, there's a person in the street. Like, stop for a second.
Yeah.
See if they're all right. It's crazy to me. But it's all around us all the time. So,
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. It's nuts. So, like, I think this movie's actually fucking important in that respect.
Yeah.
And enjoyable. And horrifying.
Well, is it time we see if there's anything that did not work for us?
Yeah.
All right. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
Honestly, this was just kind of like the last film where I have to more post, well, why wasn't it the buy it? Like, I think it was all great, but why wasn't the buy it? Mm-hmm. It just kind of this is just the section where we talk about it. It makes it sound really like standards are this high kind of thing. But really, there is a difference when a film is just killing it on every single level, that like it brings this X factor, like just when those the best of the best films. And aside from like the bean paste moment and kind of the other moments that we talked about, like some of these standout scenes, but really just the scenes where you're like, I would say the pursuing potent possibilities, the scenes you can only do in this film. It was just kind of that typical drama shot, just, it's just kind of telling a story without much kind of dynamic filmmaking, kind of bringing a lot out that some of these really great scenes did.
Right.
And so it was like all like really, really, really good, the movie, but just there was that difference between that I could recognize between a really, really good film and like a great buy it film.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that, I don't know. I've been thinking about pacing a lot in terms of cuts, like how certain films ramp up their cutting or just play around with the pacing of their cutting for emphasis of whatever's going on. And this one kind of, it doesn't seem, I mean, I have to rewatch it to like pick this apart more, but it didn't seem like that was a big point of emphasis in the filmmaking. Mm-hmm. There's great shots, and there's effective pacing in storytelling, but in the kind of like nuance of editing for effect, I don't think that was it was sort of like down the middle. It was fine. It wasn't like, holy shit. I mean, I would use, for example, Alien, I think really effectively uses editing, pacing, you know, because it's a pretty slow crawling movie and then starts to get into fucking around with that to make you feel things. This didn't feel like that.
I look at it as the editing is serving what is there really well and is like coming off of functioning like what is there. Uh-huh. But I think because of what we just said about it's, you know, really, really good, not great. And it does kind of have this epic scope to it that it's again, it really works for in itself, but it has that sort of scope as if it was a great film. And I think whatever it would be to make it better, like more scenes that are just packed with that interesting symbology or just kind of stuff that seemed fresh or different or really working with all the pieces, then you would have the editing just come out more because it's being a reflection of those things.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Like,
I can see that.
Like an example, I guess I used to describe that a lot too, is like listen to how the soundtracks work this similar way. Listen to the soundtracks of the original Star Wars films where you have a moment that allows for Luke just looking off into the sunset and having one of the cinema's best moments.
Right.
But then you look at all the new ones and it's just kind of like a melange of themes you don't really pick up on. There's never a moment.
Right.
Like these films like hardly ever settle down for a moment. And it's not to say like that means the music isn't great. It's just that it never had the opportunity to, you know.
Yeah.
Except, you know what I mean?
Well, and actually, you know, that sort of leads me to my other thing that didn't work. I just think the music in this it suffers from that kind of corny synthy stuff at times that I'm just like, I wish that wasn't there.
I got to you say this more often. I just didn't notice it.
Yeah. No, this one, there were a couple moments where it was I was like, that's cheesy.
Yeah.
It's actually hurting the moment for me.
Yeah.
So whatever. Other than that, pretty much everything's working.
Yeah. All right.
So, you know.
All right.
Nothing stood out where I was like, no. And that's, you know, kind of rare.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more too that was working that is coming up that we didn't talk about. So just again, to just kind of say that to say, we're always at this section, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe not so obvious things that did not work.
Yeah.
Okay, then that means next section, things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
I feel like we didn't hammer home the pivotal aha moment of realizing that Hae-won had witnessed the daughter's death. Yeah. That comes later, as a flashback sort of reveal that Bok-nam had seen Hae-won on the ridge above her when her daughter had been killed. So she knew that Hae-won was a witness to this, and therefore when Hae-won says, I didn't see anything, it's not because she just didn't see anything. It's because she's fucking lying again. Mm-hmm. And so the justification of Bok-nam being like, you're in on this too. Like, you deserve my wrath as well, is, I think, just an important point to make. Sorry. So That
Yeah.
should have been in things that worked.
Okay, a thing of note was that we were missing a thing that worked.
Yep, there you go.
I thought it was really interesting. Just tell me what you think this is, because maybe what this means or why this choice was made. But I think it was a choice, and it was interesting how the only other people on the island that are this older generation are all women, and the only man is like Alzheimer's invalid dude. Like, yeah, that's interesting choice.
Agree. I think, I don't know what to think of it. Like, I don't know what it's...
It brought, to tie it back to another thing. Sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off. What did...
No, I'm kind of just... I don't know what to think.
It did... Well, maybe we could pick it apart where there was something really cool how it did lead to the moment of this Alzheimer's invalid guy then burying everyone on the island.
Right.
And then maybe that could connect to the idea of when one of the women says earlier... what men are good for are like the roofing tasks. These kind of like labor tasks, and burying people is that. I don't know.
Well, I kind of took away from that moment just the act of kindness that Bok-nam shows to him by giving him a haircut.
And not killing him.
Yeah. Then kind of like has an impact where he's like, oh, you did this kind thing for me. I'm going to do this other kind thing. And like,
yeah, just as a way of showing as to what a little bit of kindness can do.
That was kind of the vague, but to your point, in the broader sense, it's effective, obviously, that's the only dude. I don't know what it says.
It could, outside of it, a dude, it's just maybe just to show he's different or there's some kind of separation, but he is the only one that, it just suggests
a broader question of like, where did all the other men go? Why are these
they say something at some point, they mention it.
You're right. They say something about them all dying.
Yeah.
Like there was a flu or something. I don't remember, but
you said it's Alzheimer's, but it's just more plays in the film as just like this dude's response to these totally horrible women running it.
Yeah.
Running it. It is what it is. They set the tone is just to check out.
Oh. Well, there's also the leaves. What are the leaves? They say, oh man.
Oh, the joke at the beginning of the film.
They make you bonkers or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the word they use, but like, she's like, what are they chewing on? And she says like, oh, those are bonker leaves, or I'm making this up. Those are dodo leaves or whatever, because they turn you into a dodo or a bonker or whatever the fuck. So maybe there's something in that there's something there. I just don't know what it is.
And all this makes me think this would be a pretty cool film to revisit when the time is right. There is a lot to kind of chew on that's probably in the earlier
like
stuff. That would be fun.
Chew on those leaves.
I liked the tagline of the film that said it was on Letterboxd. Nothing is more deadly than a woman seeking revenge. Boom. The boom part I added.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess, sure. It's sort of a hell hath no fury.
Yeah, well, what more like powerful force sleeping giant,
Sure.
kind of, and representative a lot of the world, of just the state of the world.
Yeah.
Of, women being, we know.
Yeah.
I was looking at an interview with the director Jang Cheol-soo. It was just a little stuff behind, some more meaning behind it, the level that they were thinking about it of. I think the question they set up, this was his response to sort of, the meaning of the name Bok-nam. So the name Bok-nam means a boy with luck. Sounds interesting, in accordance with the film's attentive eye on the social structure where women have been suppressed. In fact, Korean parents from the past didn't care much on daughters' naming compared to their son. To me, Bok-nam's name is already a single act of violence on the female. Actually, the name Bok-nam also has an ironical, this is all translated, that's why I said ironical, I realized, as an ironic meaning of out of luck. And it doesn't sound like a woman's name, and clearly it is a kind of old-fashioned name from the countryside. I just like the name that it has multiple implications.
That's cool.
And then just another quote from the same interview this was from cinematoday.korea.com. Personally, I prefer the story of a weak person who breaks through the wall of reality and overcomes burdens of destiny to one showing off a heroic figure helping the weak out of danger.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Bedevilled, 2010.
Bedevilled.
Straight from South Korea.
There's a lot. I mean, it's good. It's good stuff. You made me realize that there's an added dynamic culturally to her having a daughter specifically, and the idea of like the dude who he says at the end a lot like I took you in. Like this, I did you this great favor. You should be fucking grateful.
Yeah.
So like, there's even more weight to that with this idea of like, I took you in with a daughter. If that's a sort of a thing that's like, not really like, oh, daughters are less worthwhile or whatever,
Not worth giving a name, thinking about the name meaning, as you just said.
Yeah. So that I think is a cool, dynamic that we Western dopes won't pick up on as quickly.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's a good movie.
Great. That's all for Bedevilled.
Yeah.
Which maybe last thing of note actually is that with that title, don't know what it is at all. If I was a devil, it could be ghost. I don't know. It could be anything. Anyway, Bedevilled 2010. All right. We're done with that. Next is if we have RecommenDEADtions. Fuck. I want to recommend Dead. I told you after Color Out of Space, I was going on a Richard Stanley bent, the director of that, and just listening, getting a kick out of all his interviews and perspective and real life history. And went back. I'd never seen his film that put him on the map, Hardware. It was great. I recommend Dead Hardware from 1990, cool. Richard Stanley. It was just such a fun example of like where they're so clearly working on a budget, but such like a good job of just building this rich like world that has a feel and character and something consistent. And I don't know, it's just really inspiring in that way. Really, really cool. Fun too, just in did how it did play out. There are definitely some kill moments there of setting people up to be horrible, then killing them that I thought of you with, Tim, that you'd enjoy. Anyway, Recommend Dead after Color Out of Space. Hardware, if you haven't seen it, check it out.
I finally finished Watchmen, the TV series on HBO. So that's mine.
So you do watch things?
Very rarely.
No, I've been hearing good things.
I was unsure at first, and I took a long break, and then I came back to it recently and finished it out, and actually it's very good.
Great.
So that's mine. It's solid.
All right.
And like you need to read the comic book. If you haven't read the comic book before, you fucking read the comic book, guys. Don't worry about
which one's your recommendation.
Don't worry about the fucking what's his name movie.
Zack Snyder.
Yeah, Zack Snyder movie. I like that movie. I think it's fine, but it's not the comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. But like, you guys need to read the comic book. But my recommendation is the show. It's good. It's on HBO.
I'm going for our hat, Tim.
Get into it.
Our hat's getting low, so we decided we're just gonna pull to the very last one, then refresh the hat.
There you go.
It looks like there's like maybe 8 or so left.
I think so.
All right, but next week's film will be
oh, it's a long one.
The Devil's Doorway.
Wow.
Bedeviled, The Devil's Doorway. Look
cool.
at this. Martyrs to Bedeviled related thematically, then wordly related. Bedeviled to The Devil's Doorway.
Sweet.
I don't know what it is. Who knows? Maybe you've seen it, in which case you have. You should join us next week. Even if you haven't, you should join us next week. And even if you haven't, you should watch it and then join us next week, The Devil's Doorway. But until then, you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com. We got our socials there you can get to. We post on Instagram. And our big ask is to tell a friend about our show if you're enjoying listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that sounds good to you.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
In closing, then, thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.